There's probably been hundreds, if not thousands, of videos about Concord documenting its troubled development and failed management, but I think there's not a lot of people really talking about all of the phenomenal art that went into the Concord project. So today, that's why I wanted to take a look at the amazing art of Derek Jones, who was instrumental in the early previs and blue sky concept development process at Firewalk Studios and in the early stages of what became Concord. Derek Jones started out working for Studio Magnopus back in 2017, during which he also worked for Firewalk Studios at the very beginning of the Concord project from 2018 to about 2024. And during that time, he also worked with Bungie on the Marathon project from 2019 to 2020. The point of this video is to take a journey through all of Derek Jones's previous art for the world of Concord and talk about the potential of this game, as well as how, beautiful this project could have been. I've organized his work into, different chapters, so feel free to click through the timestamps to see if there's something that catches your eye. I'll start with these paintings titled Nebula Space Storm, which were Space Storm paintings done as part of the blue sky development on Concord in 2020. One of the comments on this post says, "Your art is making me emotional," and I can't help but agree. Looking at this amazing blue sky painting, before Concord was even a thing, before this world, this universe was fully developed, just, putting brush to paper and trying to imagine a colorful, vibrant universe. So I can't help but be amazed, astounded, and so engrossed in all of these beautiful colors and beautiful strokes. There are 3 different paintings in this series for, his development into the nebula of Concord. And each of them embodies sort of a different galactical climate, I suppose, showcasing different storm textures and different light sources and stages, I suppose, that were supposed to be the process of your traversal through this universe. I'm trying to picture now what a game would look like if it even had, just distant skyboxes that was using this texture approach, to the space. And I think it would be a very engaging environment. Seeing this last painting, this big explosion that's taking place in the vast expanse of space, it really makes me wonder what the early direction was for Concord. And I think if you were planning a hero shooter, we wouldn't see this much development, I suppose, in the outer space, developing all of these interactions that are taking place so far out of the play area. So I do wonder if there were plans for it to be an open world or a traversal or, a Destiny kind of project. Moving on, we have some of the VFX concept work that Derek Jones did for what he mentions is the faster than light travel in Concord. I think these might have ultimately been used for that secret level episode for Concord, but these were done so early in the development process that I wonder, if there were plans for this VFX to be usable in game. I'm picturing all those paintings that we just looked at, and I think traveling through them, through this vibrant VFX in first person on this ship, I think that would have been much more engaging than the content that we got. Now we'll pivot towards what is my favorite painting of the entire series, titled Choke Point, where Derek says, "A giant space monster tried to swallow a communication beacon, but choked and died." Looking at this painting, it brings me so much primal fear, in the same sense that looking at like some kind of Lovecraftian horror just existing in the depth of space. It makes me wonder if there were plans for these creatures to be a part of the game world, or even just a part of the game lore. These spaces are so intriguing to me, and it's such a shame that we never got to see them developed quite fully in the final build of Concord. Now, before we move on, we just looked at a space monster swallowing a communication beacon, so I'll quickly show some of the other communication beacon designs that Derek Jones did as part of the development of Concord. And I think they look very interesting. I mean, I wonder what these were designed for, if these were going to be different maps or background props that were going to be decorating the space of Concord. I don't think we ever saw these in the game, and I never even knew these existed, but they look so cool, so it's, I wish we did see them. So now let's go back in time a little bit to the very start of the Concord project. At the inception of Concord, they were trying to flesh out this universe, right? And Derek was a big part of this process by illustrating a lot of different blue sky concepts for pitching initial ideas for what the world of Concord would look like. Derek says, "This was the first work I did on Concord back in 2018. At that time, the team was very small, and we were still leaning heavily into the stylized retro sci-fi influence." He says he would usually just get a single sentence or a couple of words and then take a few stabs in the dark to try to figure out where this game was headed and what this world was going to look like. And I'll quickly just, flip through some of the paintings and some of the drawings that were done here. There's so much rich content here that if I stopped and spoke about each one, it would probably take hours, if not days. But I just want to commend all of the phenomenal design and world building that went into all of these very engaging, very rich spaces. As I'm looking through, I'm picturing traversing these spaces, in a game environment, and each one is just so interesting, and I wish I could see, a game made dedicated to every single one of these paintings. Now that we've looked at, the depth of space as well as some of the early vision for Concord, before we touch down on some of the planet's surfaces, I wanted to take a quick look at this fuel depot that Derek designed for Concord. When I look at the visual theme and concept of this environment, it's very reminiscent of the design language that we have seen in Marathon, which Derek worked on as well. So I wonder if his hand is present in sort of shaping the spaces that we got to see in the Marathon project as well. Now let's finally touch down and take a look at some of the planet concepts that were done for Concord. And I'll start with these paintings titled Trash Planet. These were supposed to be quick explorations for a trash planet in Concord. All of the galaxy's trash ends up here. And it's so interesting to me that, Derek can take this idea of trash, which is supposed to be thrown away and sort of uninteresting, I suppose, in a conventional sense, but make very vibrant compositions and colorful spaces for us to visually explore. I cannot imagine that early on in the development process they were aiming to build a hero shooter, because we see so many amazing pieces of concept done for, various planets and various spaces that look like they were, designed for like a Destiny kind of game. But moving on, we'll travel to another planet that Derek designed, titled Robot Ruins Early Concepts, where Derek says that these were very early concepts for a place where robot husks litter the landscape and people build into and inhabit the interiors of the bodies. This first painting reminds me of Ant-Man in the Deadpool movie, where people were living inside the decayed corpse of Ant-Man, and in a similar sense, people are living inside the decayed corpse of a giant space robot here, which makes me wonder what the backstory of this giant robot is and where they come from and who built them and so on and so forth. We see a bar that's in the upper stairs of this robot skull, and we can see that the eye socket has been turned into a window. And I'm noticing now that there's a bunch of what looks like alcohol bottles in the lower floors as well. So I wonder if this entire structure is built for the sake of entertainment. But it's incredible the amount of detail Derek has crammed into this small space, and it makes it feel really lived in. And I feel like I can see a lot of the different little architectural details of how people would navigate this space. The next piece in this series is titled Robot Guts Graveyard, where Derek says little guys are running around digging the batteries out of giant robot carcasses to hook up to their makeshift power station. And I am just in awe of the vastness of this space and how many dead, decaying robotic corpses there are sort of littered throughout this landscape, and how much detail there is in the little interactions between the people and the intestines and the guts of these dead space robots. And once again, I'm picturing myself navigating through this landscape in a game space and maybe getting lost and trying to find my way through the entrails of these machine life forms. From here, we travel to the Bone Mines, an intricate mining colony built into the skeleton of a colossal alien creature. These were some explorations done in 2021 and depict a group of settlers building within the interior of a dead space creature, one that I assume is similar to the one that we saw in the depth of space. I assume the reason that we haven't seen a lot of this art is because, again, Concord was probably never meant to become the hero shooter that it did. And the reason that I say that is because in a lot of these paintings, we're not seeing, ideations on a clear play area. I find myself imagining again and again traversing these landscapes and exploring this environment. And I can't help but wish that we even maybe got a single player experience, right? A single player game of us being able to explore these intricate areas. I feel like this might be a good opportunity to talk a little bit about color. In the final build of Concord that we saw, I distinctively remember seeing a very washed out, evenly lit, evenly colored palette. Compare that to these paintings where we see such a rich and deep, vibrant color palette. And I think if some of those colors carried over to the final product, people might have had a drastically different response to the gameplay. But while we're still at the Bone Mines, I want to take a second and talk about some mythological creature designs that Derek did that might correlate with the creatures that we see in these paintings. Derek describes these as ancient relics carved long ago, built in reverence of mystical creatures lurking somewhere deep in the cosmos, now lost in time. Cosmic horror is mine, and I'm sure a lot of other people's favorite subjects. And looking at these statues, I just wish I was able to do research into the lore, the story, the mythology, and the beliefs around these creatures. I mean, they're just that interesting. And they're sort of reminiscent of some of the creature designs that we see in Destiny almost, right? They look like the statues that I've seen in the Sunken Pyramid, for example. Sharing that approach of mixing organic and inorganic shapes in order to create these, unique silhouettes. The narrative potential here is staggering, and I wish we can get a project or a game, that has this amount of lore in it and be a successful experience one day. As I'm still on the topic of lore and mythology, right, let's take a second to look at some temple designs that Derek created during the early days of Concord. The idea of a temple, it really goes a long way in creating a narrative for the culture of the people that inhabit this world, especially seeing these unique platforms that I can almost imagine myself double jumping across in a game level. And I can picture as well, maybe like a master training their disciple in this environment, like Yoda training Luke Skywalker, jumping across these giant pillars. This wind temple was created in 2021, and in 2022 they persisted with this idea of temples in their production, and Derek created this set of multiple temple spaces, each themed after a different element. It's interesting that even in the far reaches of space, the core elements in these designs are still fire, wind, water, and earth. Maybe there is potentially, an option to explore more experimental elements like, how in Destiny you had like void arc. But frankly, maybe grounding these elements it's a more legible, more recognizable approach. And, at the end of the day, these spaces, these paintings are still gorgeous, and I think would have been very interactive maps and arenas. Now let's take a short walk through yet another planet, another space that Derek Jones designed, titled Ravine Hideout, where Derek says more early Concord exploration for planets in the wilds. This was a scrappy hideout built into a ravine, camouflaged above by netting/plants. This is one of the more fleshed out spaces that we can see in Derek Jones's work, and what I mean by that is that there's a recognizable play area, right? A recognizable structure boundary, as well as a recognizable path for the character or for the player to move through. Derek has attached to his post a video covering some of his process, as well as some of the earlier mock-up that he did projecting this concept onto a 3D model. I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I think it does a great job of showing how the player would have navigated this space by walking through, these gaps in the terrain. And Derek shows us that as you traverse this space, you would discover this vibrant village. For the sake of this video, I've cut out a lot of design and illustration discussion and analysis. But if you want to see another deep dive covering some of the design and illustration techniques that are being used, let me know in the comments below. I can't imagine how much work went into designing these spaces, and as always, they look phenomenal. There's so much work to look at here, so I hope I haven't lost you. But we're almost done, so let's move on to the next planet, titled Winter Hot Springs. Derek describes these paintings as a town on a snowy planet is clustered around a natural hot spring where local plant life thrives. And here we can see some of the shared aesthetic that early Concord had with the Marathon project, because, they both share this very vibrant plant life, as well as the same design thinking for some of the architecture that's populating this space. This is where we see a lot of really strong usage of conceptual contrast, right? Pairing these vibrant patches of organic plant life with very dull and very brutalist pieces of architecture. This contrast is ultimately what makes this environment so engaging to me, and I'm repeating myself, but I'm picturing walking through this town in first person and just, admiring these geometric pillars and platforms that frame the colorful foliage surrounding them. I'll wrap up the video by talking about these skybox design paintings that Derek did for a map called Glance. A map set in this desert environment where we got to see a clear view of the surrounding landscape as well as the sky. And while we're here, I'll pose the question of how does this atmosphere make you feel, with this vibrant distant skybox casting a blue light over a colorful space? I wonder, even though Concord ended up going the route of being a hero shooter in those first playtest maps that they gave us, what if we felt that same atmosphere in the lighting and in the space and in the skybox? Although, I have to acknowledge that a 3D game space will never match the prowess of a vibrant painting. That's sort of unfortunately just a difference in medium. There are definitely design decisions and visual choices that can be made to amplify the mood or narrative or the emotional atmosphere. The game might have still done just as poorly as they did, but I know for a fact that if I saw Danny's skybox in those alpha game environments, I would respond much more positively to it than the map that we saw. There's so much content here to look at. Derek did so much work for the Concord project, and outside of the pieces that I've shown, he's even worked on, graphic design, schematics, blueprints for stuff scattered across the map, and, mural designs for the walls, so on and so forth. And if you're interested in seeing any of these things, please go check out his art station. I'll have it linked below, just like in the High Guard video. Please go follow him on Instagram as well. This guy needs so much more attention than he currently has. This video would not be possible without his amazing artwork. Let me know what you think about the early world of Concord as well. Would this have been something that you would have wanted to explore? Does seeing all of this art sort of change your outlook on the project of Concord, and what do you think they could have done to make Concord a more successful launch? Big thank you if you managed to watch all the way till the end of this video. Let me know what your favorite painting was in this entire series, and let me know what game I should do next. Leave a like and subscribe for more, and I'll see you next time.